I had been on multiple dates with somebody and I really started to like them. And, it came up that they were dating other people, and I was really taken aback by that. I couldn't quite comprehend that they were juggling multiple other people at the same time. Healthy monogamous relationships aren't profitable for Grindr. What's profitable is keeping you on the app. If you go to a pride parade, the one in Amsterdam, for example, had people in collars, it had people on leashes, a lot of nudity, and also a very feminine portrayal of gay men. In drag. I just don't think that represents the mainstream. I don't think it represents what most gay men see themselves as. What it does is it creates this narrative.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Dating Beyond Borders podcast. Today I'm joined by Colby, an American journalist living and dating in Belgium. We'll dive into his experience with the cultural differences he's noticed between American, Flemish, and Dutch men. We'll also get into the LGBTQ plus dating scene. Like, is Grindr actually terrible for your mental health? And what happens if you're looking for a serious monogamous relationship as a gay man? And of course, the big question, where is commitment easier to find, the US or Europe? So welcome, Colby.
Hi, happy to be here.
Happy to have you on the podcast. I have a lot of questions. You are one of the first, gay guys on my podcast. And so that's an area I don't know very much about. So today I'm just going to throw a lot of questions at you. And we'll try to have a very honest, open conversation.
I'm ready for it. I'm an open book.
Awesome. Okay, so let's start off with growing up gay. You came out when you were, how old were you actually?
I was 18 when I did publicly. And I knew that I had some attractions towards guys around the age of 9. I probably didn't know what it meant or what the label was until I was 16.
And so you grew up in a small town, California, right?
Yeah.
So what was the reaction like when you came out to your friends and your family?
It was a really small town, so things like this spread fast, news spread fast. Everybody knew each other very well. It was very tight-knit. So I knew that if I was going to do something like this, that it was going to get around quickly, which is why I ended up doing it on Instagram. And I also did it with a few of my friends beforehand. And I was really nervous about the reaction. It was a conservative, small town, very rural. I hadn't known anybody before that had done this. I didn't know any other gay men really. And so it was very difficult. But I would say the reaction was overwhelmingly positive. Kind of the thing when it hits close to home for people change. It's one thing to see things on the media and online, and then it's another to see it in your own backyard. So the response was really, really amazing.
So wait, you actually made a post on Instagram saying, "Hey everyone, just to let you know, this is how I am," and all of that.
Yeah, I did on Instagram, and I knew that if I didn't address it first, that other rumors could spread, and I wanted to get ahead of that. I wanted to be the one in control of what I was going to say. And the impact was really positive. There was some negative reactions in the church from some of the older members, but among the students and like younger adults, and also with my mom as well, the reaction was all positive.
So what was your first dating experience like?
So it was for a non-traditional dating style, very traditional. I got set up on a blind date. My friend knew another gay guy in the other town, because that's how small towns work. Not much choice, but the way that it happened was great. I loved the blind date setup because there's sort of a compromise to any dating, any relationship, and this way, I could go and see him in person, and people obviously act a lot different in person than the profile they create online or the image they have. And so, I went, and it was great. The two of us had a relationship for a couple of months until I left for college. And so usually I think that's the one of the more primary ways it happens in smaller communities.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because a lot of people might say, well, how can you date the first person that you're set up with simply on the basis of you two being gay, right? But when we talked earlier on, you kind of had a bit of a nostalgia for that time in the sense of, well, we made it work because also we weren't with one foot in, one foot out, looking for other options.
Yeah, exactly. It's the paradox of choice, right? So you're on the app and you're swiping, you're swiping, you're swiping. There's somebody better, there's somebody better, there's somebody better. And you can be really picky about everything. But that's just not the nature of relationships. Obviously, thinking about like the one is very over romanticized, but dating in general is about compromise. It's about maybe having the same core values and having the same overarching goals, but that it's not going to be perfect. And that's kind of what the traditional way allowed you to do more. And so I loved the way of getting set up.
Mm. So after this, you had this, relationship with this guy, and so after this, you left your small town and you moved to a bigger city. Was it? Did you say San Jose? Was it
Santa Cruz.
Santa Cruz? Okay. And so in Santa Cruz, what was that experience like?
Yeah, I had a lot of culture shock. I'm going to make a big statement and say I had more culture shock moving to the city in California than I did when I moved to Belgium. Um, I grew up very, very sheltered. I didn't go into the cities that much. I had never lived outside of it. So when I moved, it was a much more liberal school. And the hookup scene was very commonplace, especially among gay men. And really, it was difficult to find anybody looking for a genuine connection or long term relationships. Also, more liberal on the dating style. There was certainly more polyamorous relationships. Um, and the only way that I really knew how to find partners was through dating apps. I did the apps geared towards more longer term ones. So I did Hinge primarily and Bumble. But there wasn't many men on them. Most of them were on Grindr.
Yeah, here's a question for you. I've always kind of been curious. As a gay guy, are you able to, you know where I'm going this, you know the question that I'm going to ask you. Are you able to just by looking at someone say, okay, this guy is gay or not?
Yeah, Gaydar, like I think so just because I've like in a way been programmed to do so when I'm trying to find eligible partners. So I have I think somewhat of a Gaydar. But I mean I've been wrong numerous times. There's some clear signs like there's some have a piercing on one ear and that signifies to other men I suppose for dating purposes. But no, in general, I think unless it's quite obvious that I'm not actually I'm not a great example of this, just because I didn't grow up with many around me.
Yeah. So was that why it was difficult as well to because you were, you were going on campus? Was it difficult to kind of figure out, okay, is this person gay? And then also if they are, how do I even approach this? I mean, do I so then it's just really hard to navigate. It's easier just to go online and find someone there.
It is, and it didn't work for me. The first 8 months of me being in university, I tried the apps. The dates I had were very shallow, or they were just looking for casual sex. And for me, I don't separate sex from emotions. I see the two as very joint together. And so when I moved, I had a really hard time with the more casual dating style. And it was hard to find men on the same page as me. That was until it was in my second semester of my first year. I was studying in the library and I got asked out by my partner at the time. And we had a almost 4 year relationship through college. And when he asked me out, I was studying in the library and I had no idea who he was. I had never seen him before. Came up to me, just asked me out directly, and my first response was, "People still do this?" I was so taken aback that like people still were asking each other out in person because I had been at the university for so long. And it was a pleasant surprise. And I really, I don't think the nature of that relationship would have moved as fast if it hadn't been for that in-person connection. Because with online, I think there's some level of detachment that people get with the swiping. They get the fatigue from it. And so maybe they're not as fully connected or present.
Yeah, 100%. I feel like on online dating apps, there's no shared, I mean, obviously no shared history, but also there's just no, it's just a person on screen that there's no reaction to this person, right? So you're essentially swiping on it, but there's no emotion involved. You haven't seen them move. You haven't seen them smile. You haven't heard their voice. There's nothing really attached to this person. There's no feeling there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, like we mentioned, the paradox of choice, always looking for the perfection. Um, and also, I would say with dating apps as well that there's a difference when you're crafting an image as to what you're projecting and the actuality of it. Who you are as a person, how you come off, tone, all of those things just can't be seen online. And it's kind of that imperfection that I think actually makes the dates a little bit exciting. Like the things that, your blind items or like things that you're a little bit embarrassed to share that maybe you don't get through the apps. Which also I think leads to this, not only this dating fatigue online, but also the kind of jealousy that you get on social media as well, that you see people with a very crafted, perfect image that isn't always the truth. I mean, and that's why there's a word called catfishing, which is why it's a common phenomenon and it has nothing to do with particularly being gay or being straight. It's universal.
Yeah. No, I wholeheartedly agree. I am attracted to the quirks and the vulnerability and people being playful and not how is your Friday treating you and what are you doing? And I don't even know you. What is this guy? It's just there's no banter, there's no playfulness, there's no breaking report, there's nothing, especially given that people are coming into it very lazy and the conversations are just yeah, they definitely I feel the dating fatigue, the dating app fatigue.
Yeah, and they're transactional. They feel like it's barter, and it's like it's not. There's obviously no passion behind it, and it's very rare that you get that spark immediately. But I think it also bleeds into the first and second dates as well. That the way that you meet in person affects the chemistry in the first date.
Yeah. It's like you're assessing each other. You're sitting there across from each other. It's not an environment where you can really let anything shine through. I mean, you literally just came to this date to see if this person is compatible and you feel it from the other person and you feel like you're trying to impress and both of you are playing this role and it's really hard to find yourself attracted to this person, which is why I think ideally, of course, if we all hung out in groups and got to know each other more organically, I think that's the case with a lot of European countries, at least in your 20s. You just hang out in big groups and you see if there's a spark and you see if there's a connection and you kind of naturally go from there. But that's also tricky. And we'll talk about that because as a foreigner, you may not want to go with the flow as much. And you also don't have those friend circles, right? So that's where the problem comes in. Let's just jump right into Belgium and actually this conversation because I really wanted to kind of get a sense of, you moved to Belgium um, 2 years ago, you said. Everyone, just a quick note to say that while I love putting these podcasts together each week, they do take a ton of time and effort. So if you're enjoying the show, please be sure to follow on YouTube, Spotify, wherever you're tuning in, and give this podcast a 5-star rating to help it grow. This support really helps me keep improving the show's quality. Thank you, and back to the episode. And so, first of all, how has it been, finding friends, establishing those contacts?
Yeah, so definitely one of the biggest barriers was the American extroversion versus the Flemish shyness. Very reserved culture, very collective, tight knit. The area I live, Leuven, which is about 30 minutes from Brussels, so in Flanders, um, this area is very international. And so it is very common that people that stay here only have international friends. The internationals form kind of conglomerates. I really tried to make a intention to make Flemish friends, and that was because I wanted to integrate here. I wanted to build a life here. I saw myself living here long term, and so I wanted friends with a little bit more stability than the ones who would just leave after their Erasmus program. But that's actually tapping into something that I think is typical for Flemish as well, is that a lot of them don't make international friends because they're worried that they're going to leave. And so they grow up with these friends from an early age, and they become very rooted in their own friend groups. So that was a really big transition for me, breaking into those friend groups. But I made a lot of effort to make those friends, and they're very reliable friends once you make them. But definitely not the same level of extroversion. Also, not used to the type of small talk that Americans like to do. Certainly more of a distance towards strangers. So, figuring out the quirks of interaction was maybe one of the more difficult barriers at first.
You've lived in Denmark before coming to Belgium as well.
I did 6 months in Denmark. And then, so I was actually in Europe for 2.5 years of my undergraduate. I was a study abroad advisor at the University of California, Santa Cruz. And so I had all of, like the tricks and tips to get my way over to Europe while California was still locked down on its second year. And Denmark was, I'd say, even more collective than Flanders.
Yeah, so it's interesting because I think Denmark is rated as one of the worst places to make friends. So you've already kind of been, you've already gone through that a little bit, so you kind
Yeah,
of
the bar
already
was
knew.
set high.
Yeah. At the same time, I can imagine that, as you said, you've had a lot of culture shocks just moving to Santa Cruz, and so maybe, um, in a way, that kind of maybe the fact that people are kind of shy and guarded wasn't always a bad thing. At least they were honest in how they interacted.
So the directness aspect, the Flemish actually, even though they speak Dutch, they speak Flemish, which is the variation of Dutch, but they are not as direct as the Dutch are. And that comes through very quickly in the dating scene as well, and also my friend groups. I would say I have an equal amount of Dutch friends as I do Flemish friends, because the Dutch are more internationally open with their groups. I think that's just a cultural difference, and also there are just more internationals in the Netherlands. Um, and the Dutch are more direct, which I actually find quite refreshing, coming from a culture where we go in circles to make a point. And it leads to many funny interactions. So I really enjoy it. And the Flemish are more soft, and they're certainly not as transactional or direct. They're certainly more guarded, I would say, than the Dutch as well.
Interesting. You've dated both Flemish and Dutch guys. I don't want to say guys because I think you've had one Dutch boyfriend. You said right. So, what have you noticed about the differences? I don't even want to say between Flemish and Dutch because I mean you need a whole bunch of dating experience to really know like specific differences. But in general, what was that experience like? What has been kind of the frustrating thing about it? What have you noticed?
So I'd say with the Flemish, it's like you mentioned. They usually start as friends, and then they move into the more serious dating, but the pace is so slow. It's really like, and I'm excluding Grindr from this conversation, where sex happens at usually the first interaction. And I don't have experience on Grindr, but I have experience on other dating apps, and also meeting people in person for dates, from getting asked out in a bar or something like that. And the pace is really slow, and it falls into this like situationship category all the time, where you really don't have labels. You don't know what it is, and there's really no rush to do it. Um, that is totally different from where I come from. Where I come from, like if you ask somebody out on a date, it's already plausibly assumed that you two are dating in the sense that you are going on dates together and you're not going out with other people during that time period. You're seeing if you two work out. You're testing the waters. Um, Here, that doesn't mean that at all. You can be dating many, many people for a long time until you clarify, hey, the two of us, we're boyfriend and boyfriend. We're exclusive. Um, and so I was not used to that. And I ended up getting hurt a lot when, I had been on multiple dates with somebody and I really started to like them. And, you know, it came up that they were dating other people. And I was really taken aback by that. I couldn't quite comprehend that they were juggling multiple other people at the same time. Um, my brain just doesn't work like that. When I'm focused on one potential interest, I see that through. And then if that doesn't work, that avenue is closed for some reason, then I would move on. So that was really a potential hiccup for me in the beginning. And also, I would say not only that, but the idea of romanticism was also one of the initial barriers. Like when people talk about marriage here in Flanders, oftentimes it's just assumed, yeah, we go to City Hall and we sign papers. That's like how the two of us get married. And I'm over here thinking like, oh yeah, it's like my big fat Greek wedding style, or like some crazy destination wedding, big, over the top. That's more the American way, I would say.
The first point, a lot of Europeans listening to this podcast might say, wait, 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 wait. But the Americans have the talk and like they're dating multiple people until they have the talk. What you're saying is actually, no, you guys are the ones that are dating around. Do you think that's different in the gay dating scene? Or what do you think about the whole like dating around in the US until you have the talk?
Yeah. So coming from a rural perspective, this is definitely the case that I don't think you're dating around multiple people because A, there may not be multiple people, multiple bachelors. But also, I would say that the big difference here is that the talk doesn't seem to come very quickly. It can come after many, many dates. Um, and also, I meet a lot of my friends here in Flanders who don't actually know what the two partners are yet, what they are, which is, in my mind, like the situationship category, which to me is more of like where the communication falls through the cracks. Is if one person wants it, but nobody has brought it up, that it leads to a lot of miscommunication. But here, the difference I would say is just that it's assumed to be slower. The pace is slower. There's no rush, and also that correlates to marriage age as well. It's earlier in the U.S. Among both heterosexual and homosexual than it is in Flanders. So, people aren't thinking about getting married or having kids until later in their life.
I wonder if the whole idea with romance, I mean, it's the pop culture of the US as well. It's like you grow up with Hollywood movies and songs, and it's driving off into the sunset. Whereas even if you watch movies from, I don't know many movies from the Netherlands, for example. There aren't that many movies, to be honest. There's the movie about a woman getting cancer. That one I know, but there's not many. About Belgium, I'm not sure because they often make movies along with France. But even speaking of French movies, the traditional European movie, it's that there is not really a happy ending often, right? It's usually like the ending is kind of, yeah, kind of sad and kind of gray and kind of realistic. It's the realisticness of life. And so I think it's like growing up with that. I don't know which comes first, the egg or the chicken or the egg, right? But the people like this, and then the movies came after. The movies dictate how you live your life. What do you think?
That's an interesting question. So it's interesting because the Americans think of the Europeans as like the romanticized daters, the ones that are like, oh, they put so much effort into it. I think this is true of Southern Europeans, that the Americans view it as really the romantic types, the ones that, invest all or nothing, that are passionate lovers, especially the Italians, I think, the Spaniards, that we have this impression of them. Um, I would say the the difference is that in the movie styles, like even the ones that are maybe like more European style, like for gay movies, Call Me by Your Name, um, that it is more realistic. So I would echo your point that it's trying to capture some of the heartbreak, um, maybe some of the more nuances of dating instead of just the rom com falling into the tropes of like enemies to lovers or anything like that. I still love rom coms, even the tropey ones, um, but I do think it's trying to portray it. I think, however, in the gay movie department, it goes way over the top. They're all about heartbreak. Every single one of them. Brokeback Mountain was about heartbreak. Call Me by Your Name was about heartbreak. One of my favorites, Firebird, one that was depicted in the Cold War, was about heartbreak. Um, and so it doesn't really paint a glossy image of or any particular example of healthy relationships that are stable. And so, yes, realism is important, but there's also this kind of hope that's missing as well.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. I think there's a practicality, right? When it comes to even the way that relationships are formed, it's moving in together, but it's not really getting married because moving in together saves, you cut down the costs and it just makes sense from the practical point of view. Um, and so that's kind of interesting, right? Because as like a diehard romantic like yourself or like me, there's a lot missing in that kind of, okay, well, this makes sense logistically, but is it romantic? That's the other question.
Yes, and you know how many times I've heard either here or in the Netherlands or from Northern Europeans. Yeah, I ask, why did you get married? Well, they say, of course, it was love. And then I also sometimes hear, oh, but the tax purposes, oh, much better, much better with the tax purposes. And I understand when the taxes are so high here that it is an incentive to be getting married, but it's a culture shock for me to even hear that that's a reason. Even if it was a reason in the United States, which I think it is, I think it's a factor, you would never say it. It would be something that you would always kind of keep inside. And so here, I think they're just honest. Like, yeah, tax wise, it makes more sense. Bureaucratically, it makes more sense. And I must say, as an international, I honestly, I do value that now because dating wise, it makes the future more certain. You want to see that you can build a life with somebody in a country, but also bureaucratically, some internationals that aren't on a work permit or are on temporary status, it is a hurdle. So that directness, I really appreciate.
Mm. When you go on dates, are you straight up about what you're looking for? Do you say like this, for me, I'm only looking for a serious relationship and I'm not looking for a situationship or hookup?
Yes, on the first date, I get it very clear and right off the bat that I'm looking for monogamy. I'm looking for a long term partner. Um, and that I want to clearly communicate about what the relationship is. I really, the slow burn is nice, but for me, it doesn't make sense if we're dating and let's say the person I'm dating does not want kids, hates kids for some reason, and I'm here thinking, I want a big family. I want a lot of kids. Raising kids is an important future goal for my partner and me. And so I don't think it makes sense to beat around the bush in that way. It makes more sense to find that compatibility with core values. And then you can start to understand the more nuances of it.
All right. So when you say this to, when you've been out on dates in Belgium or, with Dutch guys, what is the response to that usually when you say that?
Um, with Dutch, I would say it's more positive, that they're happy that it's a direct communication and that it's clear, because then there's really no need to waste time trying to convince somebody to get on your page. With the Flemish, I would say it's slower paced, and particularly that it's more um, generally, I would say it's harder to find. people that are on the same page about looking for long-term relationships. Um, I wouldn't particularly put this on Flemish versus Dutch, though. I would say this is more a difference between gay dating and straight dating, is that there's really not a um, tendency to be dating long term, especially at my age, but really in general.
Yeah, that's interesting because my question to you was, if you had to compare between California and Belgium and the Netherlands or US to Europe, where you've been, where have you found the pressure for casual sex and open relationships more? Or is it kind of hard for you to even pin that down because just in general, there is like a high expectation for this in general?
It's hard to pin down, but I would say there was a big inclination towards open relationships and casual sex at the university scene in the US, but certainly in Flanders as well. There's very much so. And I would say it's more on gay dating in general, that there's just this more casual nature about it. And that it's like almost that intimacy completely has changed from a sex first, emotion second approach, um, which I can't understand because I would say that um, sexual vulnerability is just as important, if not more, later on in those stages, because a connection makes it so much better. Um, and really, I mean, on the apps especially, you've really gotten to a very warped view of dating where sex is assumed to be something that you may not even know the person's first name that you're doing. Um, and I think that that's really become a uh, big reason for the rise of Grindr, but also not contributing, not because Grindr is necessarily responding to demand, but that it's also shaping it, and that's because of this idea of choice, that there's not a lot of gay men on the other apps. And so it's a vicious cycle that forces other gay men to download Grindr because they can't find connection. So they look for loneliness. And if I'm speaking just from personal experience with friends telling me that they all downloaded it before the age of 18. And a lot of this has to do with the community aspect that Grindr posits itself as. It posits itself as a social network or a community for LGBT people, and it lures them in with that. And then it pushes them sex, it pushes them um, different types of fetishes or relationship styles. And it's really unfortunate because it's oftentimes to vulnerable men who are lonely, and also ones that are often under the age, because Grindr's age verification is practically non-existent. There are so many easy ways to avert it because it's supposed to be a privacy app. So they're not supposed to collect data on you, which reports have suggested that they do, and that they have sold it to advertising partners as well. So it really has shaped the gay dating scene negatively, in my view. And I've seen the effects on my friends, and also on the reports of loneliness among gay men.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because what you say is, okay, that this is the only specifically gay dating app for men that is out there. And yet the only options you kind of get on that app is you should be willing to go and have sex with someone immediately, right? Like that's the concept. It isn't just, here is this app for gay people who want to find a relationship or monogamy, whatever, like choose your type of relationship, but it's more still geared towards a hookup, a one night stand. And so I wonder because there's a stereotype of just gay men want to put two men together, and of course you're going to get sex the first night. And of course if you have like an app for lesbians, then it's like of course they're going to move in together. So it's like kind of the joke of two gay guys or two guys together. Of course they're going to want to go at it. And so I wonder again, it's the chicken or the egg. It's like was the app I mean, as you said, it's like, is it because the men have geared it towards the sex first, or is it that there's like now a pressure on men to go that route because there's not really much of an alternative in terms of, okay, I actually want a relationship?
Yes, I'm going to say both. That it's really a contribution of both. That Grindr was responding to some demand, but that it increased the demand so much by making it a stronghold for casual sex among gay men. I know a lot of gay men that go on that app not looking for sex, but then end up finding it because they think that's the only way to connect with other gay men. Um, I would say one, it comes from just the background, that you are growing up, oftentimes not seeing any model for a relationship. You're not seeing a model for family. You're not seeing a model for long-term partnerships. You watch movies that really run with the heartbreak narrative. And so, if you've grown up watching things that tell you that, a relationship long term is not going to be in the cards for you, then you think that, yeah, sex is really all I have. And so I think there is that really long-standing narrative. Um, and also that the narrative was really formed during the AIDS crisis as well. That, gay relationships were really pushed to the slums. And it was very focused on, sex only, and that coming out was something about sex. But really that there's so much more emotional intimacy in it. Um, and so, although there probably was this demand, um, I think Grindr really now is trying to shape these generations in its preferred way, which is to keep them lonely, because that's what keeps them on the app longer. Obviously, if you look at from a business standpoint, healthy monogamous relationships aren't profitable for Grindr. What's profitable is keeping you on the app. And of course, this goes for all apps. There are some that will say, the app to be deleted, right? So a little bit different, positing itself as a long-term relationship app. Um, but overall, the business model of Grindr is to keep you on the app as long as possible, which means as many partners as possible, and means that you probably have not found what you're looking for.
Yeah. Speaking of the movies that portray gay men, another stereotype, another trope is the gay best gay friend, guess gay, that guy that's always like, oh my God, we're gonna go to the club tonight, and I just can't wait to get some dick. And so that's the other one, right? And so you get those too.
It's the commodification of gay men, and it's like I've had so many friends in the past where I feel like I'm a handbag. It's like I am just really an accessory to you, and you view me for nothing else other than that. And it's so reductive, is what it is. It's assuming that all we have to us is not only our orientation, um, but also that we don't have complex ideas outside of that, outside of our orientation, and also outside of, like, the groupthink that comes with maybe the more identity politics. That you kind of just stay within your set viewpoints, almost like you're some kind of NPC. And it's like there's so much more to it. Of course, it shapes you growing up gay, but it's not a defining characteristic, and it doesn't have to be also it doesn't have to be a sole personality trait. But I think it media portrays it that way, and that's really unfortunate. Which is why I love the movies that aren't about identity at all. Call Me by Your Name is one of those. They don't mention that it's two gay men at all throughout the film. It's just a film about love. And so it's really seamless in the film that, this is not about two people navigating identity. It's about navigating love in the same way that a heterosexual relationship would. And what I think that does is it integrates people better into society. That, we're not expected to be on some pedestal, and that we're not completely different than you, that we are looking for similar things. And so I wish there was more of that.
Oh, I love that. I love you saying that because I think the one I think it's the one big issue that I have with a lot of new movies from Hollywood. It's just the tropes in general. It's the single girl that wants some dick. It's the single guy that wants some dick. It's just this. It's almost like I can't relate to that. You know, again, it's like if you want people to be more inclusive, then you should also create movies that portray gay guys as just people that are the same as everyone else. They're just attracted to men. They don't necessarily have to be like, oh, girl, we're going to go to, like, it doesn't have to be that
Yeah,
guy
the over
necessarily.
feminization too. I mean, I don't meet many people who are like that, who are super over the top flamboyant or anything like that. It's also absolutely another trope that you get assumed and people assume. I didn't, I hear it all the time, especially from people I grew up with when I came out. Like, I didn't know you were gay because, you're not over the top flamboyant. You're not wearing makeup or nail polish or anything like that. And it comes from Hollywood.
Mm, exactly. And you're not always talking about, oh, this is what I want sexually. This is what I want. Because that's not the only part of your personality. That's a part of you, right? Um, I'm also not walking around and talking about men's asses all the time, right? Like it's just sure there's that part of us that's what we're attracted to, but there are many other parts of your personality. And I wonder if a lot of gay guys play up to that because that's kind of the expectation.
Oh, absolutely. It shapes it, and maybe it's some kind of way to filter out the other gay men. Maybe so it's like some kind of learned behavior. So on the nurture side, um, but I mean, let's not forget that like there we had a fight in the U.S. for gay marriage. We had a fight for gay adoption. These were family issues, right? Sex has been decriminalized between two men and two women for quite some time. Really, the fight has been proving that we want the same things, that we want to really. Some of us want to raise families. We want long-term partnerships in monogamy. And what I think it does is the narrative over compromises. It goes so far the other direction that it actually alienates the cause, that people see it and they think, well, I can't relate to that at all. I don't see that person in me at all. And it pushes them away from that. I have to talk about the nature of pride parades
I was
as
just
well.
gonna I was sitting here for 5 minutes thinking I have to ask you this question, please.
I have to, because I went to Amsterdam for Pride, and honestly, it was a huge culture shock for me. And I think there should be two very separate ideas of orientation versus maybe the more sexualization. Like on the one hand, you have like a sexual liberation movement. You've had many that have nothing to do with orientation, that are really just about feeling free and open. That should be totally separate. There's orientation, which has nothing to do with just sex itself, has way more layers to it. But if you go to a pride parade, the one in Amsterdam, for example, had people in collars. It had people on leashes. The dog fetishes and stuff like that. Um, a lot of nudity, and also a very a very feminine portrayal of gay men in drag. Um, and I just don't think that represents the mainstream. I don't think it represents what most gay men see themselves as. Um, and what it does is it creates this narrative where, people don't think that gay people are as integrated in society. They think that it's some kind of different thing that's separate from them, and they can't relate to this at all. Um, and it was a bit much for me, honestly. I went to a pride parade in Copenhagen in 2021, and it was a family friendly one. And what I loved about it was just everybody. It was old people, it was young people, it was straight people. Most, I think, were straight there. It was gay people, and it was just a party. And like the idea behind it was that like you are one of us, Like, we value you as a member of our community and we all love you. So we're all here to celebrate, right? Because we're all equal. None of us are put on a pedestal. We're on the same playing field. And it was so nice to feel integrated in that collective. Whereas now, if you go to the pride parades in San Francisco, in Los Angeles, in Amsterdam, it's, first of all, it's a sex first narrative. So it's really reductive towards any men that, are looking for something emotional. And I don't think it's helping the cause as well, because you have a lot that are tired of this narrative, and they're tired of feeling like they're put into a box that, if I'm gay, that I have to think this way, act this way, vote this way, whatever. And there's a lot of pushback towards that now.
Yeah, I really agree with you. I actually was going to say when I was in Norway, and I think it's the way Scandinavians approach being gay. It's not a thing. It's just everyone, it's just you're the same as everyone else. Okay, you like men, it doesn't matter, right? And so a lot of people have said, well, that's also the reason that a lot of Scandinavian um cities like Stockholm or Copenhagen, they don't really have like a lot of outwardly gay clubs or gay bars. And it's like, but then again, you're welcome everywhere. You can, so it's like a pro and a con, they say. I don't know. But at the same time, I remember the gay parade in Oslo, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really cool. It was like just a party. But the one in Amsterdam, the one here in Toronto, I used to live on Church and Wellesley, which is like the gay neighborhood. It's men in fish stockings. It's men butt naked. It's, as you said, men on a leash. It's not where you can bring a kid to, and as you
No.
said it. Right. And so it's not inclusive in that way. It's like, then again, it's that idea of like, okay, gay men are associated with sex and all these perversions and all these things. And so that's not, it actually probably gets more people rebelling against that, because it's like, well, what celebration are we talking about, right? And so I agree with you. I think there is a way to do it, and it's a way to do it that just is like a party, as you said. It's everyone coming together and celebrating love, which is what it is. It's love. It's being able to love whoever you want.
Yes, absolutely. I was 17 and I hadn't come out yet, and I went to a community event where there was a queer center, and it was they were trying to bring members into their center, and it was in the city closest to my town. And I remember they first came up to me, and the first thing they said was, "Do you want to get HIV tested? Do you want to get HIV tested?" And I'm thinking, I've never had sex. I have no idea why they're asking me this. I don't even really know myself yet. I'm not comfortable with the label. I would have really loved to have a mentor. I would have loved to have somebody to talk with. But the only thing I saw associated with was sexual health, or um, maybe maybe the parade one, which, again, I think there's also something to that, where it's like this idea that you're like showcasing yourself, that like, that everybody is like looking at you and cheering you on, and like it's like that you're putting yourself on a pedestal. Where I meet a lot of gay men who tell me like, no, I'm not like the parade type. Like, I don't need people to clap for me because I came out as gay. I want to have a party. I want to be, I want to celebrate with my friends, which is why I love the Copenhagen one. It was just a DJ and everybody was out dancing in the square. There wasn't this need for showcasing or showboating yourself. It was just, you know what, I'm a friend, I'm a neighbor, just as a part of this community. And it's what I love about Scandinavia is really, it's just egalitarian in that way.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. Someone said that they went to Scandinavia, and they're like, you couldn't tell who's gay and who's not, because everyone's just so nonchalant. It's like very, that they're not like out there trying to show or trying to prove anything. And I think that's kind of nice. I like that as well. Um, so you are someone that is obviously looking for a relationship. You want to get married, and you also would like to adopt kids in the future.
Yes, I looking for long-term partner, and kids is very important to me. I could never see my life without it. I would like to adopt, but one of the difficult things is that Belgium is not an easy country to adopt at all. Surrogacy is illegal. Um, And adoption, although it's legal, it's very bureaucratic, and I meet people who are adopting who tell me that they've been waiting years and years. And everybody says, "Oh, is that because you're a same-sex couple?" And it has nothing to do with that. Actually, it's just bureaucratic for everybody. Doesn't matter. They don't discriminate. It's like basically everybody doesn't have the right to adopt a kid in Belgium because it takes so long. So in many ways, that also pulls me to America, to have a family, because America is one of the easier countries to adopt internationally. But I definitely see that as my future, and I couldn't imagine it without it.
Do you think you're in the minority with that kind of thinking?
I would like to hope not. Not for long term partnership. I think people are looking for this, even if they're not admitting it. It is what a lot are hoping for that come out of relationships. Kids, I would say I'm in the minority. I don't think this is actually quite common among gay men. I think, and again, I think this is because a lot of them have been told that they never can have kids. So they never even consider this as a pathway, which is quite sad. I mean, if you are looking at the possibility for two parents to raise a kid, in many households where divorce is the standard, where single parents are the standard, having two loving parents should always be considered the better alternative, regardless of the sex. And I just don't think that many are given this possibility, or it's really portrayed. I can't name I can't name many films or shows where that's portrayed. Modern Family, it was the only one that came to mind where you have a same-sex couple raising kids. Um, so unfortunately, I think I am in the minority on that, but not for long-term partners.
But I also see, celebrities like Ricky Martin and Elton John adopting kids. So hopefully I mean, they can afford it. That's the difference, maybe.
Yeah.
But there are some of them out there. Um, Even back, like I'm from Russia, and in Russia, being gay is illegal at the moment. But it's obvious that a lot of celebrities are, and a lot of them have adopted kids, but no one talks about the fact that they're gay. And even though it's very obvious to an outsider's eye, right? But um, kind of an interesting little tidbit. But in general, like, what do you think is missing from the gay dating culture today? No matter where you are in the world, like, where are we heading as as a society?
You know, I think a lot of us need to get offline. We need to find spaces that encourage dating in person, but also just communities that aren't solely based on um, orientation, that people can just join and find potential partners. There's, like, for example, in Belgium, there's a speed dating event that offers it to gay men and straight men. And I know that has a lot of success because many find it refreshing to be offline. Um, and I think in the world we live in today, we have to be realistic. Online dating is not going to go anywhere for a while. And I think there needs to be a better alternative to Grindr, in order to show that there are other options other than sex first approaches to dating for gay men. Um, Grindr just released a feature called Right Now, which is you can click and you can get sex right now.
Wow.
Um, it's going downhill. They're integrating AI as well. The CEO said that he sees a future where AI bots are determining your compatible partners, and they are actually chatting with each other to find matches for you, so that you don't have to do all the swiping and all the meeting. And it just sounds like a Black Mirror episode to me. It really sounds dystopic. And so I hope there is a better alternative, for specifically for gay men. Um, there are other apps that are for everybody, of course, but I think apps that are geared towards meeting in person. Um, and I think really, I hope that there's more media representation of like gay men who are just integrated people in society that are looking for, maybe they're looking for traditional relationships or traditional family styles, or maybe they're just navigating life and dating, and they're not doing it in over stereotypical manners and fashions, because that portrayal really matters in terms of acceptance. It matters for, people who are living in countries where it's illegal, or it's very heavily stigmatized. In the West, we've become used to this acceptance, but in many places, it's not this way. And we need more representation of just, people saying like, I'm not actually that different.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. It's scary what you said, the sex right now. It almost feels like you're ordering Uber Eats. I mean, sex right now, like, what is that going to do to even in the enjoyment of the whole thing? It's like people are just, I don't, it's, I mean, we're heading the whole way with AI girlfriends, boyfriends. So, as you said, it is a Black Mirror episode. That's really, really scary. Um, how much they're commoditizing the whole thing. Um, which, maybe that's going to push people into saying enough is enough. This hasn't fulfilled me. I actually want to go the other route, and I'm looking for a meaningful relationship now because it's gone so extreme that now people are like, that's how it is. The pendulum swinging one way, and then people go, oh wait, we want traditional values back, and then they go the other way, right? So that might happen as well.
Yeah, and I think that pendulum swing, I think the overcompromise happened, when for gay men, when you start to question your sexuality, that they start to question other things, right? And they try to figure out where to draw some line. And that kind of questioning also includes the questioning of the traditional values. And then you throw dating apps into the mix of that. And it's a breeding ground for really completely different styles of dating that I don't think, if you look at the burnout rate, are leading to satisfaction. Um, and so, really, I hope that there is a swing back. I don't know with the future of AI; it doesn't look necessarily promising, but I will say I think there is a lot of people who are getting off the apps and trying to find more traditional ways to meet in person. I have friends all the time who are asking me to set them up on blind dates, which, I heard in my small town, but I never heard living in the city. And so I think it is just this general fatigue.
Yeah. Last question for you, Colby. Going forward, do you see yourself, staying in Belgium? Do you see yourself dating a local, or are you kind of considering, maybe I should go back to the U.S. or maybe I would prefer to be with an American.
I love Flanders. I love my life here. There are so many pros to living here. In many ways, I think it's made some good adjustments for me. I live a slower life, even though it's not my inclination. I live a more social and well-rounded life. Um, and in that manner, I also see my future partner, um, at least living somewhere in Western Europe, the two of us. Um, America will always be a part of my life, and I will never rule out going back for some period of my life, for work, especially. Um, but I see eventually it being here, if not in Belgium, in Western Europe. And so, when I picture it, I picture it here. But I will say, there are things that call me home as well. Like any international will ever say, I think it's like finding your identity is like putting pieces together of a puzzle, and it's not always going to fit perfectly. You're going to be homesick. You're going to feel like I resonate with this aspect of this culture, this aspect of this culture. And so it's always like finding a different key to your heart. Um, and so there are many things I appreciate about the American dating style as well. And so, I hope to find somebody that is open to dating internationals, and is also kind of looking for that traditionality. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's here, or I wouldn't be surprised if it's an American living abroad. I'm not sure, but I want to be an integrated member of life here. So for me right now, the priority would be finding a partner here.
Colby, thank you so much for being so honest. It was so interesting to listen to you and kind of how you have you've thought about all these areas. And it was really an eye opening podcast for me, and I think for everyone else as well. I wanted to talk to you more about Belgium, but I just got so curious and all the other aspects of of what it means to have this identity that it kind of became. We had a couple of topics in there. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
So, guys, if you enjoyed the episode, don't forget to follow, rate, and share it with a friend who might need a little inspiration. If you have a question for Colby, leave it in the comments below. Until next time, stay curious, stay human. Hope you all enjoyed the podcast. If you made it all the way through, don't forget to subscribe on YouTube, follow on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you're watching or listening. Your support helps me bring in bigger guests and surprise you with even better episodes. Until next time.